Welcome into our Truck Tech segment for this Friday. Bill Priestley here, joined by Alan Adler, our Detroit Bureau Chief up in Detroit, Michigan, but took a little bit of a road trip this week. Alan, where'd you go?
Well, Columbus, Indiana, which, I'm familiar, as you probably are, with Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Indiana might be a little less known, but in fact, it is a true company town, Bill. It's the home of Cummins, and Cummins being the largest producer of diesel engines in the country, but also a really forward-leaning company in terms of emissions and a lot of the technologies that they're working on. They invited us down to spend a couple of days truly drinking from a fire hose, in terms of a lot of the material that was provided to us. But, oh boy, what a great trip.
Yeah, you mentioned mentioning in your article that Columbus, one of the 6 top architectural sites in the country. If you get a chance to look at some pictures of this place, it's quite amazing. First off, I guess, Cummins came there in 1930 or so?
No, 1919 was when they were founded.
Okay, so yeah. 1919. Advantages of going to a small town. I know that there are lots of these places where you can find like a major manufacturer that kind of dominates the area. But what has Cummins done that has allowed them to stay there? Obviously, you've got low real estate prices, but also not much labor force when you go out into the countryside.
Well, okay, so let's take the last part first. The recruiting that they're able to do, because they really do have their choice of, top engineers from kind of a tri-state area, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, all of that, because they're right there on I-65 or right off of I-65 that, kind of located between, say, Indianapolis and Louisville, right? I mean, you've got a couple exits that'll get you into Columbus. I think over the years they've grown because they're able to bring in the kind of workers they can get them from the universities and so forth that help them build out their engineering. And this is what they mostly do there. They do produce in the area, of course. They've got a plant for the Ram pickup truck engine, the diesel that they make for that, but a ton of research and development, really fascinating stuff that they're working on. Not things that others don't do, but they have kind of a singular approach right now that speaks to the idea of what's called well-to-wheel emissions, getting rid of pollution all the way back to the source. And they're working on this in a number of different ways. We spent a good bit of time in their technical center yesterday. The newest part of the technical center, most of it was built in the 1960s. The newest part literally came in containers from Wisconsin, and it is 5 test cells for electric componentry for electric vehicles. And they're working on hydrogen, both in terms of fuel, for an internal combustion engine, which is a pretty new thing and something that won't really hit the market till around 2027. But Cummins, I think, because of a lot of the pressure from regulators now, it feels it needs to talk about and in some ways market what it's going to have available. They're already big in fuel cells. They've got over 2,000 fuel cells in vehicles around the world, from trains in Germany to buses in Japan. So, they're absolutely transforming. I've written that in the past. That's not new. But they're transforming from just a diesel engine company.
So what do you say now? Obviously, transforming from a diesel company, what are they transforming to?
Well, alternative fuels for one. The idea that their main engine or their main large engine that the truck companies purchase from them and offer this X15 will now be able. They're bringing a natural gas version, and not just for natural gas, which will cut your emissions 15 to 20%. But if you run it on a renewable natural gas, which comes from animal waste and things like that, you've got a potential negative net zero emissions profile. So natural gas, then hydrogen, then for buses, not petrol. What am I thinking of? Propane. Thank you. Propane is going to be one of the opportunities there. And so right now, the idea is don't just bet everything, don't bet the farm, if you will, on just electrification and hydrogen, but rather do things you can do today to begin to upstream at the source, take care of things that will ultimately lead to a better environment overall.
What do you think is their number one objective right now, given the fact that they're trying to basically climb a tremendous mountain? Like you said, some of their stuff is not even going to hit the market for 5 years.
Right. Well, obviously they're continuing to work on diesel engines. They're in the process of buying Meritor Inc. right now, which will bring in electronic axles and a whole lot of traditional axle regular axles that are needed for trucks and things like that. So they're expanding through acquisition. They've really built out the hydrogen business in the last few years for fuel cells. They've purchased both tank suppliers as well as a company called Hydrogenics out of Canada, which is really leading something that doesn't come up so much in the newsletter, but we'll write about in the future, this whole idea of electrolyzers to make hydrogen from water and electricity. So just, the new power, literally the new power division at Cummins is getting a lot of attention. Today, those bills are paid for by traditional diesel engines, but they know diesel's not going away. They know it'll continue to get cleaner, but they're really, not quite at a tipping point, but the new power thing is coming on really strong.
So they're really looking at fuels primarily in terms of not necessarily how they're used, but in terms of what they're doing for the environment.
I think yes, but yes to both, really. I think that, the idea is that the fuels, quite honestly, are sort of a transition. I mean, someday we probably will be at hydrogen as our main fuel source. Their goal is 2050 to be, zero carbon from their products, from their new products. And I think, their feeling is there's a lot of different ways to get there. Let's not just bet on one thing. And I think of it kind of as a roulette wheel. I mean, you've got your marks on red, black, and everything in between.
How far ahead of the curve are they right now? Are they trying to be a leader in this respect, or are they how are they looking at themselves market-wise?
Well, I think from a fuel cell and hydrogen perspective, they're absolutely, carving out a leadership position for themselves. With all the acquisitions that they did, and now with the, being able to bring in an electronic axle from Meritor, they'll be able to offer a complete fuel cell system, which means, you're talking a big part of the real estate. I mean, they don't make vehicles, right? I mean, they make powertrains. So, but the idea that they'll be able to offer a complete system, a solution, or whatever you want to call it, is a big deal. They're going to continue to make the diesel engines cleaner. They're going to continue to work on electrification, especially in buses. That is an area that FreightWaves gets into much, but it comes hand in hand with a lot of the developments in engine technology.
Real quick, and you may not know the answer to this, but are they looking for an ultimate solution at some point?
I don't think so. I think ultimately they see that battery electric will get you a certain part of the way, and that's really where a lot of the attention is these days. And they'll get you a certain part of the way. But I think their point is, don't just look at what you can do at the sort of the pump to the tailpipe. You've got to look at all the way back to the well. Where does this energy come from? How is it formulated? So I think things will come and go at Cummins. Ultimately, we're probably looking at a hydrogen economy down the road. I mean, decades from now. But until you get there, I think they're saying just don't rule out much of anything. That's their approach. And by the way, it was something really special with the newsletter is a 1919 engine, one of the first Cummins engines that we'll have some video with the newsletter this week.
Well, I've happened to drive that road, I-65, quite a bit, and I still didn't know that Columbus was there, and it's great to know that, if you get a chance to check it out, it's wonderful. But like I said, Cummins and what they've been doing, great stuff, Alan.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. We'll take a short break. We'll be back right after this.